Destroyed by drug, well, that's what the headline said. But the truth, it's worse. David Ruffin's death wasn't just tragic. It was surrounded by lies, money gone missing, and stories nobody ever wanted to explain. The man who sang My Girl died alone in a crack house, and someone stole his money. David Ruffin had one of the greatest voices in music history. His deep, soulful sound made the Temptations famous around the world. Songs like My Girl and Ain't Too Proud to Beg became classics because of his voice. He was born Davis Eli Ruffin in Mississippi in 1941. By the mid-60s, he was a superstar. But even at his peak, darkness was creeping in. Most people think his drug problems started after he left the Temptations. They're wrong. Ruffin first went to drug rehab in 1967. That was while he was still in the group. While fans were buying his records, he was already fighting cocaine addiction. His behavior got worse fast. By 1968, his bandmates couldn't stand him anymore. He missed rehearsals and shows. He demanded they change the group's name to David Ruffin and the Temptations. He wanted to ride in a separate limo lined with mink fur. His ego was out of control, fueled by cocaine. The Temptations fired him in June 1968. He was only 27 years old. His addiction had already destroyed his career at the top. This wasn't a slow decline. This was a star falling from the sky in flames. Ruffin tried to go solo after getting kicked out. His first single, My Whole World Ended, did well in 1969, but it couldn't save him. The drugs were stronger than his talent. Every time he tried to make a comeback, cocaine pulled him back down. In 1975, he had his biggest solo hit with Walk Away From Love. It reached the top 10. For a moment, it looked like he might turn his life around, but it was just another false hope. The song's title turned out to be prophetic. Love, success, and happiness all walked away from David Ruffin. His addiction wasn't just destroying his career, it was killing his body. Ruffin had asthma since childhood. Crack cocaine made it much worse. He was hospitalized multiple times for breathing problems. Doctors warned him the drugs would kill him. He kept using anyway. The man who once commanded stages around the world was becoming a shell of himself. His voice was still powerful when he could perform, but those moments were getting rarer. Cocaine was winning the battle for his soul. The 1980s brought new lows for Ruffin. His legal troubles piled up like his drug habits. In 1982, he was fined and jailed for not paying taxes from 1976. His house got foreclosed around the same time. The man who once made millions was broke and homeless. That same year, the Temptations had a reunion tour. Ruffin was invited back. It should have been his big chance to restart his career. Instead, he missed the first 3 shows. Why? He was too high to perform. His old partying ways had returned with a vengeance, as one report said. The arrests kept coming. In 1987, police caught him with cocaine. He went to drug rehab again. In 1988, he was convicted of cocaine use. He faced up to 20 years in prison but got out on bond. In 1989, he tested positive for cocaine while on probation. Back to rehab he went. But Ruffin's drug problems weren't his only dark secret. He had a history of terrible violence against women. His relationship with singer Tammy Terrell was brutal. Reports say he attacked her with a hammer, a machete, and a motorcycle helmet. These weren't fights. These were attempts to seriously hurt or kill her. Terrell suffered from severe headaches. Some people think Ruffin's beatings made them worse. She died young from a brain tumor. The connection between his violence and her death remains a dark question mark. Jenna Sapia Ruffin, his long-term girlfriend and mother of his son, wrote about his abuse in her memoir. She said the violence started with words and emotions, but it escalated to extreme violence toward both me and our son. By the end of their 10-year relationship, she feared for their lives. Sapia Ruffin said Ruffin added smoking crack to his habits of smoking pot and drinking during their time together. As his drug use got worse, so did the beatings. This pattern showed up in multiple relationships. Ruffin wasn't just hurting himself with drugs. He was destroying everyone who got close to him. The violence revealed something deeper than addiction. This was a man with serious problems, controlling his anger, and treating people with respect. The drugs made it worse, but they didn't create his violent nature. They just gave him an excuse. By the late 1980s, Ruffin was caught in a cycle he couldn't break. Drugs led to arrests. Arrests led to rehab. Rehab led to brief periods of sobriety. Sobriety led back to drugs, over and over again. In 1989, something good finally happened. The Temptations were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ruffin got to stand on stage with his old bandmates one more time. He looked healthier. He claimed he had kicked his drug habit, but addiction doesn't give up that easily. Ruffin was still using. He was just better at hiding it. The next 2 years would prove that his demons were far from defeated. June 1st, 1991, started like any other day for David Ruffin. He had just finished a successful month-long tour of England with former Temptations, Eddie Kendricks, and Dennis Edwards. The shows went well. Fans still loved his voice. He was carrying between $10,000 and $40,000 in cash cash from the tour. But success couldn't save him from his addiction. That night, Ruffin found himself in a West Philadelphia crack house. He wasn't alone. A man named William Nowell was with him. Together, they shared 10 vials of crack cocaine. For someone with severe asthma, smoking that much crack was like playing Russian roulette. Ruffin's body couldn't handle it. He collapsed. His breathing stopped. He was dying. What happened next depends on who you ask. The official story says another man, Donald Brown, drove Ruffin to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. Brown told hospital staff that Ruffin had overdosed. Then he quickly left. He didn't stick around to help or answer questions. Ruffin was pronounced dead at 3:55 a.m., just 55 minutes after arriving at the hospital. He was 50 years old. The official cause of death was an adverse reaction to drugs, cocaine. But that's where the story gets strange. Remember that $10,000 to $40,000 Ruffin was carrying? When he died, police found only $53 in his pockets. Tens of thousands of dollars had vanished. His family immediately suspected foul play. How does that much money just disappear? Someone had to have taken it while Ruffin was dying or dead. But who? The man who drove him to the hospital? Someone at the crack house? Nobody had answers. The hospital had to identify Ruffin's body using FBI fingerprints. That detail made everything seem even more suspicious. Why couldn't family or friends identify him? What condition was his body in? Different stories started circulating about how Ruffin arrived at the hospital. Some reports said his beaten body was dumped in front of the hospital. Others said he was transported in a limousine and accompanied into the waiting area by his driver. These weren't small differences. One version suggested he was beaten and abandoned. The other made it sound like a normal medical emergency. Both couldn't be true. Ruffin's family filed a lawsuit claiming the NBC miniseries The Temptations got the story wrong. The show depicted his beaten body being dumped in front of a hospital and suggested his body went unclaimed for a week. The family said he was accompanied to the hospital and his body was claimed within days. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed. The court upheld the ruling on appeal, but the family's legal fight showed they never accepted the official story. They believed something more sinister happened that night. The missing money, the conflicting accounts, the suspicious circumstances. None of it ever got fully explained. David Ruffin died with more questions than answers. No formal charges were ever filed. No clear answers ever came. David Ruffin's death remains shrouded in mystery and controversy. The man who gave the world some of its greatest love songs died alone and surrounded by lies. His addiction wasn't a late career spiral like many believed. It defined most of his adult life, starting when he was still famous and successful. He hurt people who loved him. He destroyed relationships and opportunities. He chose drugs over everything else, again and again. Yes, David Ruffin was a musical genius. His voice will live forever in songs like My Girl, but he also left behind victims, scars, and a legacy marred by the chaos he created and endured. His story isn't just about a talented man who fell from grace. It's about the devastating ripple effects of addiction and violence on everyone it touches.